bat here, we got a couple of guests from a couple of authors, by the way, young authors. They wrote a book called Reinventing the Right. Or I guess it's not so much authoring a book, because it's a book of essays that they all helped edit. And so I'm going to have two of them on, because what they're talking about is sort of bringing political theory, political science to a whole new generation of young conservatives. I have John Amble and Chris Tiedeman. Am I pronouncing your last name right, Chris?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm actually a little surprised. Thank you.
I'm a little surprised I got it right too, because normally I don't. But Chris Tiedeman, John Amble. Now, basically, let me see if I have this. It's a collection of essays by younger conservatives, and it's actually getting a lot of traction. The book is one of the top 100 most popular political science book on Amazon. By the way, if you want to purchase the book, I've got a link up at sayanythingblog.com if you want to buy this book. But basically, it's a collection of essays about political philosophy for conservatives. I'll let you guys maybe tell us a little bit more about it. John, what was your guys' purpose in writing this?
Well, first, thanks, Rob, for having us both on here. Started out right after the election in 2008. I got an email from a friend of mine, Rob Wheeler, who was my co-editor on it, on the project, and it sort of emerged out of this sense that watching election returns after Barack Obama was elected the winner, there was this sort of widespread sense you got that the entire electorate had come out in droves, and that he had a universal mandate to enact whatever legislation, to pursue whichever agenda that he wished. And we just didn't think it was the case. We thought there's still a lot of conservatives out there, particularly in the younger generation, and we wanted to make that statement known. So
that was actually an argument I was making right off the bat. I actually started making it as early as 2006, saying that the reason why Republicans were losing out wasn't so much, I think, because the Democrats were gaining traction with the liberal agenda. I think they were winning elections by default. I think it had a lot to do with dissatisfaction in the conservative base with the way the party was going. Is that sort of the point you guys are hitting on here, Chris?
Yep, absolutely.
Well, that's a big part of it, but it's also how we're communicating our collective, our shared conservative values. And I shouldn't use the word collective, because we're a dynamic movement. But we live in the Twitter, Facebook, blog, talk radio generation here, and we as conservatives can't be afraid that our message is going to get diluted by the mainstream media anymore. And we have an opportunity to talk about issues that our message was swamped and just distorted over in the past, because we have such a new medium of communications. And we can talk about healthcare as conservatives, and we can talk about conservation and those sorts of things in a way that is, definitely conservative. We don't have to change our values, and that's, I think, the direction we were going when John and Rob started this book project.
Now, so what you guys are saying is that we don't have to abandon our conservative ideas to win elections, right? Is that where this is going, Chris?
We can't. We have to keep our conservative values, and that's being seen as we go into this next election, frankly, and we're going to see the success of talking about issues like you talk about issues, Rob.
Yeah, I think that's such a healthy thing, especially for younger generations, because it's not just new ideas and things like that, and it's not just or even I guess communicating old ideas to a new generation in a lot of ways. I mean, because limited government philosophy has been with us for a long time. But I think it's also interesting because, and I don't know how much you got. Unfortunately, I haven't had a chance to read the book yet. I just heard about it like last week, so I haven't actually read your book yet. But I'm just going by what you've told me about it, and I'd be interested. Do you guys get into things like just the actual medium of how things are being communicated? Because I've been blogging for 7 years. That's actually how I ended up on talk radio. Was I've been writing a blog, and I didn't ever really expect anybody to read it. It was pretty much me talking to the void for the first couple of years. And then after that, pretty soon people started reading, and what do you know, I'm up on talk radio. Now, that's not a path I guess a lot of people are going to follow, but, certainly I think it's interesting because the way younger generations organize is so much different. I mean, we do it with Twitter. We do it with Facebook. We do it by, we see an interesting story in the Wall Street Journal or the Fargo Forum or whatever, and we share it with all our friends on Twitter, or we share it with all our friends on Facebook, or we write a blog post about it. Whereas previous generations had to write a letter to the editor, or they had to, maybe clip it out of a newspaper and mail it to everything. I think that changing dynamic changes the way the movement I guess works together. I mean, I think that's an interesting dynamic change as well. I don't know what you guys think about it, Chris. What are your thoughts? Is that something you guys cover in the book?
It's something we talk about issue by issue by issue. We, as I said, a moment ago, we're able to communicate as a team within this dynamic movement and talk about timeless philosophical values and really engage the electorate, and it's beyond the electorate because this isn't just about politics. This is about policy and moving legislation and the like. So I think you're absolutely right, and the blogosphere and Twitter and Facebook have really allowed us, which is prime mover behind reinventing the right.
Yeah. Now, also, I mean, because I think it's also so important to communicate the philosophy as well, because. And I don't know how you guys feel about this, but in a lot of ways, I feel that the conservative, I guess, or the limited government philosophy isn't always an easy one to back, and it's certainly not always an easy one to communicate. And I think conservatives by nature aren't very easy to organize, and a lot of times it can be like herding cats. But the way I always say is it's very easy to get on Fox News or MSNBC or something and say that we should do something for the children or we should do something for the homeless, because that's a very emotional thing, and we all want to help the children and we all want to help the homeless. But it's very difficult to get on and explain that creating some monolithic government program doesn't necessarily help the homeless or the children or the poor or whatever victim group that we happen to be catering to at the moment. So this really is important for conservatives, maybe even more so than liberals, is sitting down and saying, what do we believe and why do we believe it?
Yeah, Rob, if you don't mind, let me jump in there and speak to that. One of the essays in our book is on strengthening volunteerism in America, and essentially it argues that so many of the federal programs, primarily that are in place right now, are just not achieving the results that they're set up to achieve. And yet, day in and day out, we see countless examples of initiatives undertaken by the private sector, by private actors who are coming out and actually making a difference in people's lives. And that type of argument doesn't fit well on a bumper sticker. It doesn't necessarily lend itself to the 30-second soundbite. But it can be made in a 10-page essay in a book like this, and that's what we sought to do, is to take these 17 public policy issues and have a discussion about them and root that discussion in the founding principles of the country, a respect for individual liberty, the rule of law, equality of opportunity, what have you. And the final product we're very, very happy with, and we think it does that.
It's also interesting because you guys are using a very retro manner of doing it. I mean, a collection of essays is more something you would expect out of like the Buckley era of conservatism, not really the modern Twitter era where your communications are limited to 140 characters. I mean, so you guys are kind of going to a retro medium to communicate new thoughts to a digital Twitter, Facebook, blog age.
Well, and as you said earlier.
We have, this is, first of all, I should say, God and Man at Yale, William Buckley's first book, was a huge inspiration to us. So I guess it's an honor to even be mentioned in the same sentence as that, even if it's just by comparing the format. But we also have a Twitter feed, Right Reinvented. We've got a Facebook fan page and a Facebook group, and we're trying to use all of these media to create sort of a network where people can have this conversation. They can read the book, then they can discuss it on some of these interactive platforms, because that's really where I think the future of sort of political discourse lies. But I don't think it's going to completely. I don't think the compendium of essays will ever completely go out the window.
Hey, Chris, did you have a thought on that as well?
Well, I was going to reiterate John's point that you can follow us on Right Reinvented, and as issues come up in whether it's on blogs out there or even in the mainstream media or during political debate, whether it's in Washington or St. Paul or Bismarck. As we see issues come up, we discuss them on our Facebook page on Right Reinventing.